From tech to textbooks, learning again at 70 just to keep up. She sat in front of the screen, eyes squinting a little behind old reading glasses, fingers hovering uncertainly above the keyboard. The blinking cursor was waiting. So was she. It wasn't fear exactly, not the kind that makes your heart race or your palms sweat. It was something quieter, heavier, like standing at the edge of a diving board after a lifetime on land. She was 70 years old. Not broken, not lost, just outpaced. The world had gotten fast, faster than she ever imagined it could. Smartphones replaced landlines. Clouds now held memories instead of skies. People spoke in abbreviations, LOL, AI, NFTs, API, and conversations flew faster than thought itself. What used to be familiar had become foreign. It was like waking up in a city you once called home, only to realize all the street signs had changed. So why bother trying to keep up? That was the question she wrestled with at first. And maybe that's the question you're asking right now too. Is it worth learning something new when the world seems to be sprinting toward a future built for the young? Is it worth the confusion, the frustration, the time? Yes. Not because you need to prove anything, not because you're falling behind, but because learning again, especially later in life, isn't about racing anyone else. It's about reclaiming something the world slowly convinces us to surrender, our right to grow. You see, this isn't a story about going back to school to chase degrees or job titles. This is a story about saying yes to change, not for approval, but for your own liberation. It's about picking up a textbook or opening an online course or asking your grandchild how to use that strange new app. Not because you want to be trendy, but because you refuse to settle into silence. Learning at 70 doesn't mean you're behind. It means you're still becoming. And in a world obsessed with speed, there is something radically beautiful about taking your time and doing it anyway. So if you've ever felt too old, too out of touch, or too intimidated to begin again, this is for you. Not to convince you, but to remind you. You're allowed to begin. The world may not wait for you, but it needs you. It needs your curiosity, your perspective, your courage. And all of that starts with a single step, a single click, a single choice to learn again. Let's walk through that journey together. It's strange how something so small, like a button labeled Join Now or Start Course, can hold so much weight. For someone who's lived through wars, weddings, heartbreaks, and miracles, how could a little screen be so intimidating? But the truth is, fear doesn't shrink with age. It just changes its costume. When you're younger, fear might look like failure, embarrassment, rejection. But at 70, fear often wears the face of invisibility, of not belonging, of being seen as the one who doesn't get it. And that fear can be paralyzing. You sit there debating whether to click into the virtual classroom or close the tab. You wonder if you'll understand anything, if you'll remember anything, if people will laugh when you ask questions. You think about all the things you're supposed to know by now, all the things that never came with a manual, like apps, passwords, cloud storage, and cookies that aren't for eating. But here's what no one tells you until you live it. The first step is always the hardest, because it's the one that breaks the story you've been told about yourself. You weren't born with a fear of learning. Life gave it to you. Maybe it happened the day someone rolled their eyes at your question. Maybe it was when your kids started speaking in tech terms you couldn't follow. Maybe it was when society gently pushed you aside, saying, "This isn't for you anymore." But that's a lie. Learning doesn't belong to the young. It belongs to the willing. That first click? It's not just about opening a lesson. It's about rewriting a belief that you're too old, too slow, too late. That click says, "I'm still here, I still care, and I still want to know." And that's enough. Because once you've faced the fear of starting over, really, stared it down and clicked anyway, something shifts. You begin to realize that fear is a shadow, and movement, any movement at all, starts to scatter it. There may be tears. There may be moments when you feel foolish. There may be days when you think about giving up, but you won't. Because the same strength that got you this far in life, the one that carried you through raising children, surviving loss, navigating decades of change, is the same strength that now sits quietly beside you at the desk, nodding gently. You've got this, and you do. It's funny how classrooms smell the same even when they're virtual. The whiff of possibility, the flutter of nerves, the quiet click of someone raising their digital hand. For some, it was a local community center with free courses. For others, it was YouTube videos on coding, or online masterclasses on history, or how to write that novel they've been carrying in their chest for 40 years. Some even joined book clubs through Zoom, laughing nervously at first, then later sharing insights like they'd been friends forever. And slowly, something beautiful began to bloom, not in grades, not in degrees, but in the mirror. There was a time, not so long ago, when the mirror reflected doubts, the furrowed brow of someone who didn't know where to begin, the shrinking posture of someone unsure of their place in a fast-changing world. But now, the reflection was different. The eyes sparkled more. The shoulders stood straighter. The questions came not from insecurity, but from wonder. Because that's the gift of learning later in life. It's no longer about ambition. It's about aliveness. When you're young, you're told that school is a means to an end. Grades, jobs, salaries. But when you're 70, you begin to learn simply because you can. And that changes everything. You take a course on digital photography, not because you want to become a photographer, but because you want to capture the way sunlight hits your garden at 6 p.m. You read up on climate science, not to become a scientist, but because your grandchild asked about melting ice caps and you want to answer with something more than a shrug. You learn how to use a word processor, not because you're writing a thesis, but because you're finally writing down the stories no one else remembers from your childhood. You aren't going backward, you're going deeper. And along the way, something else returns. Confidence. Not the youthful kind that brags or needs applause, but the quiet, rooted kind that comes from knowing you're capable. That your brain, though older, is not closed. It's still stretching, still absorbing, still forming connections like the roots of an old tree finding new water. You laugh more now when you mess up. You ask for help without shame. You finish a course and think, well, look at me. That feeling? That's not just knowledge, that's dignity, and it's yours. Because no matter how many candles are on your cake or how many apps you've yet to master, the moment you choose to learn again, you reclaim something priceless, your sense of self. And it grows with every page you turn, every question you ask, and every answer you dare to seek. There's a myth people whisper as you grow older, that in order to stay relevant, you have to become someone else. Dress like the younger generation, speak their lingo, pretend you're not startled by the pace of change. Learn all the latest tools, all the platforms, all the trends, just to prove you're still with it. But here's the truth most forget. Relevance isn't about mimicry, it's about presence. Being relevant doesn't mean becoming someone new. It means bringing who you are into where the world is now, and that shift in perspective, it changes everything. You don't need to master TikTok dances or know the difference between a Bitmoji and an emoji. You don't need to compete with the pace of 20-somethings or adopt every new trend like a badge of survival. You just need to stay curious and stay you. When a 70-year-old joins a Zoom call to attend a writing workshop, it's not about keeping up, it's about showing up. When someone asks their grandchild to teach them how to use voice dictation because their fingers aren't as quick as before, that's not weakness. That's wisdom in motion. When you choose to learn something new, not to prove a point but to stay connected to your own aliveness, you redefine what relevance truly means. Because in this world of constant updates, the most enduring value is someone who listens deeply, thinks clearly, and engages sincerely. That's you. You see, staying relevant isn't about speed, it's about substance. And older learners bring something to the table that no machine or app ever can. Perspective. You've lived through revolutions before: radio, television, the internet. You've watched the world turn over and over. You've seen values shift, technologies rise and fall. So when you choose to learn now, it's not because you're behind. It's because you know that change is never final and that growth never expires. The world needs that perspective. It needs your stories, your insight, your questions. Because while everyone else is racing to be first, you've learned the power of being present. So go ahead. Learn how to use that new budgeting app. Take the class on podcasting. Download the audiobook, start the online forum, try the meditation app. Do it not to fit in, but to keep expanding. You don't have to lose yourself to stay current. You just have to stay open. Because staying relevant isn't about impressing the world. It's about continuing to belong in it, on your own terms. So much of life is spent finishing things. Finishing school. Finishing projects. Raising families. Building homes. Making ends meet. Holding it all together. But what they never prepare you for is how sacred it can be to begin again. To start something, at the age when others are winding down. To learn, not because you must, but because you choose to. To show up to a world that moves too fast, and still find a way to walk forward, even if it's at your own pace. That's not just admirable. That's revolutionary, because in a culture that often sidelines its elders, every act of learning becomes an act of defiance. A statement, a quiet, powerful whisper, I am not done. And maybe that's what this story has been about all along. Not textbooks or technology, not being fluent in the latest digital dialect or earning certificates you'll never use. Maybe it's simply about saying yes. Yes to growth. Yes to newness. Yes to the version of you who still exists beyond the roles you've played. Yes to your voice, your hands, your heart. Still learning, still reaching, still capable of awe. You may not feel brave every day. There will be mornings when you forget passwords, struggle with logins, or feel like giving up halfway through a lesson. But that's okay, because courage isn't loud. Sometimes it's just clicking the join button, or walking into a library, again. Or writing your first paragraph after years of silence. Courage is not about being the best in the room. It's about refusing to leave yourself behind. So here's to the learners who start late, to the ones who read slowly, ask questions, take notes by hand, and celebrate the smallest victories. To those who keep learning, not because they have to, but because their spirit is still curious. You are not behind. You are the proof that life can bloom in every season. And if the only thing you walk away with is this, that your mind still matters, your heart still stretches, and your willingness to grow is still intact, then that's more than enough. That is the victory, and the world is better for it because you chose to begin.